Hi, this is Adam Elio Berkowitz from Prophecy News Talk. Today is Yom HaZikaron. It's the day of remembering the soldiers who were killed creating the state and protecting the state of Israel. An interesting note is that it's not so many years ago that they actually expanded that, adding into this uh, the victims of terror. It just happened organically, and I guess it seems correct that in Israel, even the citizens, the civilians, as you go on a bus, you're a frontline soldier, because, well, that's the way our enemies are fighting us. And I would even include in that the Jews who are killed, what we call the Kiddush Hashem, sanctifying the name of heaven. They're killed just because they're Jews. The Ishbitz, the Piazetzner Rebbe, he said that it's the continuation of the binding of Isaac. Abraham lifted up the knife to sacrifice his son for the sake of heaven, but he did not complete the action. And an action includes both the intention and the action. And the Nazis brought the knife down. You can include also the Jews who were so recently killed in Poway, because in a synagogue, they are the continuation of the binding of Isaac. They're on that spiritual level, and that is what we're commemorating this day. It's an incredibly powerful day, and there are incredibly powerful events that are surrounding this. As I said, Poway happened just before the the day of remembering the Holocaust. I think significantly so. The Holocaust, it did happen. To say that it didn't happen is just a way of paving the path to another Holocaust. So people who deny the Holocaust, their real intention is to say, oh, it didn't happen. Don't pay attention. Don't look over here, even though it looks like it's happening again. And thank God Israel stands in the way of that ever happening again. So Jews who remain connected to Israel are protecting themselves. Jews who reject Israel are leaving themselves open to that energy coming down on them again. Just to show you the reality we live in, we do live in a rather extreme reality. On Saturday, Shabbat morning, Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, PIJ, both started shooting rockets at Israel. The PIJ is funded by Iran. And even the Arabs, the Muslims admit, the friend of my enemy is my enemy. Iran is and the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Israel and America are very powerful allies. Iran is now threatening America, and it's paying people to harm Israel. So America and Israel both have a vested interest in joining together to fight this powerful evil. So that's also what's happening these days. But I'd like to tell a little light-hearted story to lighten up a little. Um, I didn't do much army. I did 5 months in the army, training to be a combat medic, and then I did miluim, reserve duty, usually several times a year. And it was I did the army at the age of 30, and it was kind of weird because I was pretty set in my ways. I was an old school hippie. I was a deadhead. So to find myself suddenly, I remember there was we were doing a live fire exercise where there I was wearing a Kevlar helmet, carrying an M16, several magazines that I was expected to shoot out, working my way across a field as a group of soldiers, shooting and having live ammunition shot over my head and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I'm wearing a full vest and carrying hand grenades. It was really a crazy thing. And we're getting ready to run. And I guess I had a strange look on my face because my officer came over to me and he asked me, is everything okay? And I said, well, I'm having a bit of an existential crisis. Meaning I was sitting there trying to figure out how I left my my Happy Dancing at Grateful Dead shows behind and ended up wearing all this army uniform and army equipment and actually shooting a gun. So my officer looked at me and he said, do I need to check your rifle? Meaning that was shorthand for, if you're losing your mind, I don't want you to have bullets. And I turned to him and I said, no, I'll work it out sometime during the shooting. And I did. And the point of this is, we live in a very difficult reality. There are a lot of difficult realities that have been and have always been and will be. And a Jew, a servant of God, makes himself into whatever God needs him to be. For the longest time, Jews were cannon fodder. We were killed by Cossacks. We were just banged around. But when we came into Israel, there was a need for a Jew to be a soldier, for Jews to be soldiers. And we became good at it. And that's actually kind of tragic. Because we need to be kohanim, we need to be priests, and a priest is made impure by contact with a dead body. And it is such a loss that the Jews should need to become soldiers. And I'm reminded of, everyone says, oh, every other country would just carpet bomb Gaza. And then there are the people who lie and say, oh, no, Israel's the problem. Israel is not the problem. And I'll get to that in a minute. But Jews there's this tension when we cross through the Yam Suf, the Red Sea. The Egyptian army was wiped out, and the angels started to sing. And God said, you can't sing because these were also my creations, but the Jews did sing. Because a man can be happy that he survived a war. And that's what Jews are. We are happy we survived the war, but we can never, ever celebrate at the downfall of our enemies. And there are even wars that we're commanded to fight, one of them being a war of existence in the land of Israel. So we cannot, I remember when I was living in Bat Ain overlooked the valley leading out to the Mediterranean, and we could see almost down to Gaza and north to Tel Aviv. And I remember the just before we went out to the first war incursion into Gaza, there were fireworks in all of the Arab villages, and I couldn't understand. And that's when I realized that there is an essential elemental difference between us and them. We had to go out to war. They did it on Saturday as well, even though they were being pounded, and they were happy that they got the opportunity to spill blood. And I don't hold that against the Arabs. That's who they are. That's the basis of Ishmael. It was Hashem, God defined their essence in the Torah. But we cannot do that. We cannot celebrate. But at the same time, not only we have the requirement to defend the Jewish presence in Israel. And that's why I find it tragic. I understand the really good intention when people say Israel has the right to defend itself. It's something that all of our allies say. And it's horrifying. I appreciate and cherish the good intention behind it. But is there any other people, any other person, any other individual, any other nation that you're doing them a favor by saying they have the right to defend themselves? That's not everyone. It's a basic human right. By saying that Israel has the right to defend itself, you're saying that Jews are not human. We don't have the same right as every other human to defend ourselves. And that's horrifying. And unfortunately, it's become part of the process where Jews are not allowed to defend themselves against rocket attacks, 700 rockets in 48 hours that were intentionally targeting civilian centers. To say we have the right to defend ourselves is to say we are not human. So therefore, you're doing us a favor by telling us we have the right to defend ourselves. I appreciate and cherish the good intention, but please, why don't you say something like, Israel has the right to wipe out its threat. Hamas is evil. Condemn Hamas. No one has ever condemned Hamas. They've just said that Israel has the right to defend itself. That's crazy. And I think it's because also people don't want a solution. A lot of things have intentionally caused this to continue to the detriment of both the Palestinians and the Jews. The UNRWA, one thing they did is every refugee in the world is defined by the UN as a person who has been forced to flee their country because of some kind of threat. And that's the definition of a refugee, except for Palestinians, who it's in perpetuity. They will always be refugees because there's a vested interest in making this an ongoing conflict. Rashida Tlaib, the congresswoman, she claims she's a Palestinian. She's not a Palestinian. She was born in America. Her parents were born in Israel. How is she a Palestinian? She's of Palestinian descent. We have to stop the lie because the lie is intended to continue the conflict. The left wing, they have lied to the Palestinians. They say they support the Palestinians. They only support the Palestinian cause when it comes to Israel. Any other country that oppresses, kills Palestinians is totally ignored. So they've perpetuated this conflict. Why? Because it's okay if Palestinians suffer, if Palestinians die, so long as there's a chance that some Jews are killed, so long as there's a chance that they can demonize Jews. Hamas knows this. Hamas has picked up on it. Palestinian Islamic Jihad has also picked up on it. They don't care. It's a victory for them if Palestinians die. That is their victory, and they're declaring victory. They always declare victory when Israel is given no choice but to defend itself and kill Palestinians. People don't know this, but the civilian deaths in the last Gaza incursion, it was a lower percentage than any other modern conflict. The rockets that go out from Gaza, there was this story where they were condemning Israel for killing an infant and his pregnant aunt on Saturday. And Israel was roundly condemned. However, it came out and Islamic Jihad admitted that it was one of their rockets. Because their rockets kill Palestinians, because they've got lousy rockets and their rockets don't always leave Gaza and they fall on Palestinians and kill them. And on Saturday, that infant and his pregnant aunt were killed by an Islamic Jihad rocket. Silence. Silence. As long as they were killed by an Israeli response, it's a victory for Hamas and Islamic Jihad. That's evil. That's evil. The people who support the perpetuation of this by supporting the Palestinians, by telling them that one day Israel will magically go away, that's evil. It's a death cult. They relish the death of Palestinians. I'm kind of sick of that, to be honest. If you really cared about Palestinians, if you wanted to root out the cause of this conflict, you would get rid of Hamas. You would get rid of Islamic Jihad. You would get rid of Iran funding Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad. All of the money that goes into these rockets and terror tunnels should be put into the benefit of the people. No one decries that. No one says, hey, stop it. Why? And not only that, they keep giving them money, more money. Why? Because they're getting what they want. What they want is an opportunity to kill and demonize Jews, even if it means killing Palestinians. You might even say, in your more cynical moment, that having Palestinians die in order to demonize Israel is killing two birds with one stone. They really want both. I'm not saying there isn't a Palestinian crisis. There is. But no one is working to solve that crisis. I want to stop the war. I want this to be the last Yom HaZikaron, the last memorial day for Israel's dead, where the numbers rise. I want it to be really a day of remembrance and not part of the process anymore. I'd like to tell a story that shows, that illustrates the power of this twisted reality. I posted a video yesterday, a story about little children when there was an air raid siren. They stood and they didn't run for the shelter. Why? Because last week was the Holocaust Memorial Day, and there was a siren commemorating those who died in the Holocaust. And the kids were used to that. And they knew that this week there would be two sirens at night and in the morning for the Memorial Day. So when they heard the siren, they stood rather than run for the shelter. And then one of their parents woke them up to that. And today, last night, when there was a siren for Memorial Day, the Memorial Day for the dead, there was a video of a little boy, I guess 2 years old, 3 years old, running for the shelter. Because that's what he's been doing all week. 700 rockets. And Hamas and Islamic Jihad declared a ceasefire. And yet they're already declaring that they're going to attack Israel again. I think we need to stop talking. Stop talking because people say stupid things. There is no arguing. There is a reality. And I want the Palestinians to stop suffering. I want the humanitarian crisis in Gaza to end. I want my people, who I care so much about, to stop living under the threat of rockets. And the only way to do that, if you condemn Israel, that's not going to succeed in anything. That's going to make the problems worse. It's going to continue it, but make it even worse. The only way to stop it is not to say Israel has a right to defend itself. The only way to stop it is to look Hamas and Islamic Jihad and Iran in the face and say, you are evil. We will stop at nothing to stop you. You are evil. Any person who cannot say that Hamas is evil, that Hezbollah is evil, that Islamic Jihad is evil, any person who cannot openly say these are evil and are bringing suffering and death to the world, if you can't say that, then you are part of the problem. You are the problem. You are giving strength to evil. Siding with Israel is very important, and it's not because Israel is such a great place. It is. I love it. It's the litmus test. It is the litmus test. If you look throughout human history, you will see that it has always been the classically evil forces that have come against Israel. Because if you are evil, you cannot allow Israel to exist. Yes, you can criticize Israel, but it has to be a level playing ground. If you're going to criticize Israel, it has to be the same as every other nation. If you're going to praise Israel, don't say we have the right to defend ourselves. Everyone has the right to defend ourselves. And what would any other country do if they had rockets shot at them? What did England do? What did the Allies do to Germany for shooting rockets at them? Every time America goes to war, you go to war to stop the evil. And that's what we're doing. And tomorrow is Israel Independence Day. I'm probably going to do a video from my barbecue, and hopefully I'll be much happier. You should all be blessed. You should think about the day, Memorial Day in Israel, and Holocaust Day, and the heavy price we pay for not staring evil in the face and calling it for what it is. Be blessed. Thank you very much.